I believe that Moses was actually the first to use PowerPoints. When it comes to classroom and online instruction, many of us employ the old traditional lecture model, kind of similar to Moses on the Mount with the tablets containing the Ten Commandments. We are the authority, the ones who hold the information to be conveyed to our students.
But Socrates said, I cannot teach anybody anything, I can only make them think.
And Plutarch said the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be ignited.
Moses is not the only one who has the tablets. The students from the millennial cohort, and even most of today's non-traditional adult learners, have easy access to their own tablets and a vast array of other electronic media. Information anymore is readily available and easily shared, to the point of information overload.
Well, yeah, that's the truth. And while, the instructor usually has more experience and by default is the leader in the room, instructors...
Supposedly.
Well, they may not have the time to keep up with what is currently available in terms of easily accessible information, but should be there to guide students to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. The assumption is that all professionals, quote unquote, can be teachers. So in other words, if you're an accountant in that profession, then automatically teach that. Does it follow then that all NFL football league players can be coaches? And if teaching is an art, should it follow that Mozart could teach music and Picasso could teach painting?
I didn't realize it, but most college instructors have not had any formal education in how to teach. So they teach in the same manner they were taught, which is apparently what is perpetuating the existing system of academic delivery.
Ooh, scary.
It is scary, and I think it's scary because when you look at what happened to Socrates, the Athenian government accused him of corrupting the young through his teaching, and he was offered the choice of renouncing his beliefs or being sentenced to death by drinking hemlock.
Was he sentenced by his department chair?
I think so. I think so. So one of the things we have to look at is there's a paradigm shift coming ahead, and it may be radical for a lot of folks in the teaching profession, those, of course, in college teaching.
Pedagogy or Andragogy. There's two terms we're all very familiar with, right? One, basically, pedagogy talks about teaching young people, and Andragogy is teaching adults.
We don't use the term andragogy very much at all.
Well, why is that? Are we teaching kids or are we teaching adults?
I think because the original teaching model was designed for children, and that hasn't changed. In fact, many instructors call their students kids. If students are calling themselves kids, what are the implications? Look at Malcolm Knowles. He believes that adults have enough life experience to be in dialogue with any teachers about any subject and will learn any new knowledge or attitudes or skills best in relation to that life experience. Of course, the operative word here is adults.
And also Mary Ellen Weimer, one of my favorites, says, students should be shown all the respect we can muster. We need to humble ourselves so that even the least are worthy of our attention and admiration.
By the way, she wrote the book, Learner-Centered Teaching, and she's also a creator of Faculty Focus, an online newsletter for higher education teaching strategies.
That's a good vehicle right there.
She's kind of our guru. Andragogy does not mean we turn our classrooms over to the students assuming they are adults. Age and maturity do not necessarily correlate. We've all had the surly 35-year-old who sulks, as well as the 18-year-old who leads the class.
Praise for the department chair or dean of students who supports the instructor as the boss in the classroom. Just as in the working world, students and the employer, quote-unquote, can decide if this working relationship is a good fit or not.
And in active learning, as in the real world, students are expected to take personal responsibility for their own learning and are expected to come prepared to share their learning with others, just as if you were working together in a collaborative environment.
Employers say they're looking for employees who are effective written and oral communicators, problem solvers, collaborators, and innovators. We believe the world needs people who can know themselves and help others. Or should the classroom environment facilitate opportunities to learn and experience these very skills on an ongoing basis, or just here and there? Since much of today's information comes from electronic media, we all need to find innovative learning ideas that integrate technology appropriately as a research tool to be utilized judiciously while applying complex thinking skills.
Through Through classroom discussions and working together, students can learn communication skills as well as more about themselves and others. For those that are concerned that students may not always stay on topic, think of those conversational moments as promoting acceptance of individual differences as well as an understanding of cultural diversity.
The active learning model collaborates with students to design assignments that integrate, whenever possible, reading, writing, and analyzing numerical information. Learners internalize what is meaningful and pertinent to their passions and lives. The rest dissipates away after the big test. Should responsible students have more of a say in how and what they learn? B.F. Skinner, he says, education is what survives when what has been learned has been forgotten.
Students will not forget if they can combine their personal and/or professional interests with the content. It deepens their level of learning. This can be done through writing assignments, special projects, and presentations. Simultaneously, students are integrating the content while learning to develop critical social and professional skills that can ideally benefit them in the world beyond the classroom.
The active learner-centered teaching model suggests alternatives or complements to the traditional model of exams, such as portfolios, case studies, mind maps, and research assignments. These demonstrations of learning can also serve as non-traditional tools for assessment of knowledge. For example, a football coach might quiz his players on their play assignments in the locker room. However, the authentic assessment is performance-based, not on the written quiz, but the real-world performance on the field. Authentic assessments may also serve as an opportunity to apply, analyze, evaluate, and create new knowledge according to Bloom's taxonomy.
Kurt Levin, social psychologist and author, suggests that learning is more effective when it is an active rather than a passive process. To this end, we recommend whole brain learning, a research-based system that utilizes all areas of the brain. This keeps students engaged, which in turn helps them retain much more information than the standard lecture, even discussion model. It's a highly interactive form of instruction that delivers information or gives assignments to students in smaller pieces or chunks, like a jigsaw puzzle. Students then teach what they have learned to their colleagues, like putting the puzzle together, sometimes known as the Jigsaw Method of teaching and grouping. While students are working together, the instructor moves around the room to check for understanding and provide clarification. Research on whole brain learning shows that students retain more information when they have an opportunity to put it into their own words and use movement and graphics to emphasize key instructional points. One of my favorite quotes is from Jane Vella. She's also an educator and an author. A learner feels his power when he hears himself being heard. How can we shift our thinking from pedagogy, students as children and passive learners, to andragogy, students as responsible adults, if we continue to design classroom seating that is antithetical to an active learning environment? Adults don't sit like this. Certainly people in meetings don't sit like this in the business world. If institutional goals are to be collaborative, learning-centered, and facilitate discussion, then why do we continue to use traditional lecture halls? Let's use the lecture halls for the performance arts. Otherwise, they'll be seen as an ancient artifact of teaching someday. As Paulo Freire says, if the structure does not permit dialogue, then the structure must be changed. We propose seating along the lines of this classroom layout model we discovered called Scale Up. This stands for Student-Centered Active Learning Environment for Undergraduate Programs. It's a project based out of North Carolina State University, and it was designed to establish a highly collaborative, hands-on, computer-rich, interactive learning environment for large enrollment courses. In the meantime, the rest of us must work with what we have and adjust our classrooms accordingly.
Ideally, we should be able to adjust our teaching styles and classroom layouts to bridge the gap and shift toward a combination of lecture, learner collaboration, discussion, and dialogue, such as depicted here at the Lyceum. In ancient Greece, Aristotle and others walked around the room as they lectured while students worked together in small groups. Maybe we ought to flip it to guide on the stage and sage on the side.
Well, we hope we've been mildly helpful or at least appropriately irritating. The opinions expressed are strictly our own and not necessarily those of any of the universities or colleges for which we teach. You can find us at www.activatelearners.org.